Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to learn about limiting factors. The process of photosynthesis in green plants is actually controlled by, or you can say is affected by several factors like the availability of light intensity. That means the amount of light which is available to the plants for the process of photosynthesis. Then the availability of raw materials, that is carbon dioxide and water, and the temperature of the surrounding environment of the plant. Okay. Now, it might happen that sometimes any of these factor is present in very large amount. Okay, so it can happen that any of the factor is present in large amount and other factors are present in lesser amount. So the factors which are present in lesser amount in the environment, they always control the rate of photosynthesis in green plants. Okay, and these factors which are present in lesser amount and they always control the rate of photosynthesis are known as limiting factors. So the name itself, describes it, limiting. Limiting means any factor which is actually restricting a particular process. So limiting factor is defined as something present in the environment in such a short supply that it restricts the life process. Okay. And for the process of photosynthesis, there are three limiting factors. And it is light intensity, carbon dioxide concentration, and temperature. Okay, so in this video further one by one we are going to discuss about these three limiting factors. The first factor which affects the rate of photosynthesis is light intensity. So what happens is whenever a large amount of light is present, okay, so with increase in the light intensity, or you can say when more amount of light is present, the rate of photosynthesis will increase, but the rate of photosynthesis will increase only up to a certain point. After that point, what happens? The rate of photosynthesis becomes saturated or it gets constant. If you will look here at the graph, on x-axis light intensity has been labeled, on y-axis, that is vertical axis, rate of photosynthesis has been labeled. Okay, now what happens is initially with increase in light intensity, rate of photosynthesis will also increase. Okay, but after certain point, okay, this is a particular point. After certain point, what happens is the rate of photosynthesis becomes saturated or it becomes constant. Okay, you can see here the graph levels off. The graph levels off because of the rate of photosynthesis which has become constant or saturated. Now the reason behind this constant rate of photosynthesis is the two limiting factors which are actually controlling the rate of photosynthesis, and these two limiting factors are carbon dioxide concentration and temperature. Okay, so that means carbon dioxide concentration is not sufficient enough to continue the process of photosynthesis further, or maybe the temperature is not very high enough. Okay, if temperature is low, what happens? The enzymes which are present in the plants for the process of photosynthesis, they work very slow. Hence, the rate of photosynthesis decreases. So what happens at low intensities of light is a low light intensities, increasing the intensity will initially increase the rate of photosynthesis. Okay, so as the graph shows in previous slide, initially with increase in light intensity, the rate of photosynthesis also increases. But at certain point, increasing the light intensity stops increasing the rate of photosynthesis. Why? Because after this particular point, okay, here, after this particular point, even when there is increase in the light intensity, the other two factors, that is temperature and carbon dioxide concentration, they are present in such a short supply, or they are available in such a limited amount, okay, that the rate of photosynthesis cannot be increased further. So the rate of photosynthesis just becomes saturated or constant. Okay, so this is how light intensity affects the rate of photosynthesis. The next factor which controls the process of photosynthesis is carbon dioxide concentration. Okay, carbon dioxide concentration. Now you guys are aware that carbon dioxide is a very important factor for the process of photosynthesis. Okay, it is actually a raw material for the process of photosynthesis. Carbon dioxide is a source of carbon and oxygen. Okay, and water is a source of hydrogen. You are aware that in the process of photosynthesis, plants, they prepare glucose. Glucose is having carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. So carbon and oxygen comes from carbon dioxide and hydrogen comes from water molecule. And carbon dioxide and water molecule, they both serves as the raw material for the process of photosynthesis. Now what happens is, with increase in the concentration of carbon dioxide, obviously the rate of photosynthesis will increase, okay? Because more amount of CO2 is present, hence rate of photosynthesis increases. You can look here in the graph, same like light intensity. Initially with increase in the concentration of carbon dioxide, the rate of photosynthesis also increases. But after a certain point, you can see here in the graph, the rate of photosynthesis becomes constant or it gets saturated, okay? That means the graph levels off. You can make out here the rate of photosynthesis becomes constant and the graph levels off, okay? Now, why this happens? Because after this particular point, even if there is increase in the concentration of carbon dioxide, okay, even if there is increase in the concentration of carbon dioxide, the other two factors, that is temperature and light intensity, they are present in limited amount, okay? They are controlling the process of photosynthesis. Fine. So because of these two limiting factors, that is not enough light and temperature, okay, because of these two limiting factors, the rate of photosynthesis cannot be increased further. So after this particular point, the rate of photosynthesis becomes constant or saturated and the graph levels off, okay. The third factor which affects the rate of photosynthesis in green plants is temperature. Now about temperature, you have already studied in unit 5 enzymes, okay. I'll just tell you a little bit in detail. Temperature affects the rate of photosynthesis because photosynthesis process in green plants is an enzymatic process. That means the entire process of photosynthesis in green plants is controlled by many different enzymes, okay. Now in unit 5, you have studied about the mechanism of enzyme action, that is lock and key hypothesis. So you are aware that every enzyme which is present in living organisms, all these enzymes, they have an active site, okay. They have an active site. So this is the active site of one enzyme, for example, okay, active site. Now substrate molecule, that means the molecule which is taking part in any reaction, okay, the reactant molecule is also called substrate molecule, is always having a shape which is complementary to the shape of the active site of the enzyme, okay, and hence this substrate molecule is able to fit into the active site of the enzyme, okay. So this enzyme and substrate molecule together, they form enzyme substrate complex, okay. But what happens is, initially when the temperature is low, the kinetic energy of enzyme and the kinetic energy of substrate molecule is very less, okay. Now what happens is, with increase in temperature slowly, the kinetic energy of both enzyme and substrate molecule increases, and due to the increase in kinetic energy of these two, the frequency of collision, or you can say the chances of collision between them, increases. Hence there is more chances of formation of enzyme substrate complex, and finally products are released, okay. So you can look here in the graph, temperature is labeled on x-axis, rate of photosynthesis is labeled on y-axis, and you can make out from this graph that with increase in temperature initially, the rate of photosynthesis also increases, and rate of photosynthesis is highest at optimum temperature, okay. This is optimum temperature, okay. In case of plants, optimum temperature for all the enzymes is generally between 20 to 25 degree Celsius, okay. But what happens if temperature increases beyond optimum temperature, okay. So if temperature increases or if temperature goes beyond optimum temperature, what happens is the rate of photosynthesis decreases, okay. It decreases gradually. Now the reason for this decrease in the rate of photosynthesis beyond optimum temperature is that the shape of the active site of enzyme molecule destroys, okay. The shape of the active site of the enzyme molecule changes. Hence substrate molecule cannot fit into the active site, okay. Substrate molecule cannot fit into the active site of the enzyme. So what will happen? Enzyme molecules cannot combine with substrate molecules and no more reaction can take place. Okay. So remember this, enzymes, they get denatured after optimum temperature. If temperature goes beyond optimum temperature, so enzymes, they get denatured, and the meaning of term denatured is the shape of the active site of the enzyme changes, and hence substrate molecules will not be able to fit into the active site of the enzyme. Okay, so remember very well that initially with increase in temperature, rate of photosynthesis increases. This is because with increase in temperature, the kinetic energy of enzyme and substrate molecule increases, and hence the frequency of collision between enzyme and substrate molecule will increase. And enzymes, they work best at optimum temperature. And in case of plants, the optimum temperature for enzymes is 20 to 25 degrees Celsius. Beyond optimum temperature, the rate of photosynthesis gradually decreases. This is because after beyond optimum temperature, what happens is the active site shape changes and the enzymes, they get denatured. Okay, hence no more reaction can take place. So this is how temperature affects the rate of photosynthesis in green plants. One more way in which temperature can affect the process of photosynthesis, and that is like the lower epidermis of leaf. They always have an opening in them which is called stomata. Okay, so for example, if this is the lower epidermis of the leaf, okay, so in between the cells of lower epidermis, there is a small opening which is known as stomata. Okay, now this stomata is important for the process of photosynthesis because when stomata is open, carbon dioxide gas always diffuses inside the leaf to palisade and spongy mesophyll cells through this stomata. Okay, so carbon dioxide gas is present in plenty amount in the air. Okay, so this carbon dioxide gas actually has to move inside the leaf till mesophyll cells for the process of photosynthesis, and this gas always moves inside the leaves till mesophyll cells through stomata. Now due to high temperature, stomata, they generally close. Okay, they get closed in order to prevent water loss by transpiration. Okay, so in order to prevent the process of water loss by transpiration, what will happen? Stomata, they get closed during high temperature. Okay, or during very bright sunny day or in hot climate. Okay, so these stomatas, they get closed in order to prevent water loss by the process of transpiration. Now, as stomatas gets closed, carbon dioxide gas cannot diffuse inside the leaf to the palisade and spongy mesophyll cells. And finally, what will happen? The process of photosynthesis will decrease gradually. Okay, so this is how temperature affects the rate of photosynthesis in plants. Fine. There is another very important raw material required for the process of photosynthesis, and that is water. Okay, so we are aware that water is a very necessary raw material required for the process of photosynthesis, but still it is not considered as a limiting factor, and this is because the amount of water which is required for the process of photosynthesis is very less. Okay, the amount of water required for the process of photosynthesis is very less compared to the amount of water which is being lost from the leaves in form of water vapors. Okay. Hence, water is not considered as limiting factor. Why? Because the amount of water which is required for the process of photosynthesis is very less. So only this much in this video. We'll discuss about conditions required for growing crops in glass houses or greenhouses in the next video. Take care till then. Bye-bye.